Jim Szoke from the Panthers radio network joins us now on the Patrick Johnson Show. Hello, Szoke.
Hello, Johnson. How are you?
I'm doing well. Did you know that there are only like 18, maybe as few as 15 instances where Jerry Seinfeld said hello Newman on the show? Yet it seems like he said it every time, right?
Yeah, that's it wouldn't make for a very fun drinking game like Hey Bob from the old Bob Newhart show. So you wouldn't be able to really have much fun with that.
Yeah. So, but I mean, don't you, like some of the characters on Seinfeld, they are not on as many episodes as you think. So I guess a lot of it is because it's on constantly. And if you love the show, you watch it still. So you think the characters are maybe on there more than they are. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, they recur more often when you watch reruns over and over again. So it makes the Soup Nazi seem like a mainstay on the show.
Yes, absolutely. And I think he was only like on one or two shows. So,
right.
Jim Szoke, speaking of on shows, will be back this week on the Panthers radio network. We'll have the game against the New York Football Giants on our station for the Panthers in the East. Talk 103.7 WTIB, our sister station. All right, Szoke, let's break it down. Great fourth quarter drive by the Panthers by and large. Took the lead. Ben, who I'm sure we'll hear from here in a minute, thinks they should have gone for the score for 6, but they, settled for the field goal, did probably what they statistically should have done. But then it comes back to bite you in the end when Jacoby Brissett looked like Joe Montana.
Well, poor man's Joe Montana,
yes.
to say the least.
Yes, a very poor man's Joe Montana.
A very poor man.
Yeah.
Some poor officiating to go on top of the poor man's Joe Montana.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that, but yeah, just, you give up that final drive. And I mean, look, there's at the end of the day, 58 yards, rookie kicking. Sometimes you got to tip your hat.
No, absolutely. I was underwhelmed by Jacoby Brissett. Sorry, NC State fans. He doesn't look great as we along 10 more games, I think, for Cleveland. But for the Panthers, Baker, again, you think, despite the fact that he's only been here a few weeks and there's no excuses, there's got to be some amount of learning that can only happen by playing at full speed tackle football that you can't replicate in practice, training camp, preseason games, all that kind of stuff. So it took a while to get going. The offense looked like it hadn't done enough together. And now at least they have that amount. They have 4 quarters heading into New York this week. But at least they came back and got 17 points in the fourth quarter. And as you said, got beat by a 58-yard field goal. I will say that is not going to be unusual, I don't think, for Cade York out of LSU to knock those down. I've seen him in pregame warmups hit 70-yarders. So he's got not only the leg, but the accuracy to do that. So you have to know if you're playing Cleveland, if they get to midfield, if they get to the 50-yard line, they could win the game with a 68-yarder if they have to possibly. So, and whatever Ben was going to ask about with the late in game thing, if they had 4 botched snaps, one of them occurred late there, took them out of a play. So there were things that they self-inflicted wounds-wise hurt themselves with.
Well, let's get to the call or the calls. Anything with the quarterback, it's going to get called. I mean, that's just the way it is, baby, as the song went. So you can't – the Rembrandts, just the way it is, baby. So you can't do anything about that. I mean, it probably wasn't the right call. It was ticky-tacky, but it's the world we're in 2022 NFL. I'm still baffled over the pump fake on the spike. I didn't think you could do that, Jim. What's the explanation from the No Fun League on that?
I mean, technically, you're not supposed to do that. It's supposed to be one motion. There's not supposed to be like a fake and then a pump fake. There's no looking out to the receiver to see if he might be open and do the old Dan Marino. So, yeah, there were 2 missed calls. I mean, those were both critical moments that could have changed the game with a penalty there and pick up a penalty flag on Brian Burns for the roughing the quarterback. So those 2 things both worked against the Panthers. Unfortunately, so it's kind of this double-edged sword of those both worked against them, but also the body of work was there was more than 2 plays that happened during the game where they could have played a lot better, like stopping the run short of 217 yards. So there were things they could have done to help their cause. But both of those, you expect to not have to beat the other team. So those were 2 calls that were certainly missed, I think.
By the way, it appears on our video feed here that Ben was in an earthquake, but I think he's okay now. Ben B. Baby Byram, he'll be posing his questions for the great Jim Szoke here in just a minute. Szoke with the Panthers radio network. No, you hit the nail on the head there, Jim. No wonder you're a WBT Hall of Famer, because It doesn't come down to those two plays. Yeah, they don't help, and they happen in the last minute of the game, etc. But I mean, there was plenty that needs to be rectified, and the Panthers probably could have been in a better position to maybe even have won this game without it coming down to a 58-yarder.
Well, you look after 1 week of football evidence, and they gave up the second most rushing yards in the league, and they offensively only had the second most offensive rushing yards in the league. And you got Christian McCaffrey, so 10 carries, 33 yards for him. And I know they only ran 50 plays as part of the problem, because the sustainability of drives was a huge issue in all their offensive numbers. That's a ridiculously low number of 50 plays to run in an NFL football game. So all that worked against them. And stuff that's correctable, and they'll work on this week and get better. And the Giants are a very similar team to Cleveland in that they're going to run the ball. Guess who the number one rushing team is? It's the New York Giants.
Yeah.
Saquon Barkley had 164 yards of that last week. So they've got a very similar test for the defense coming up this week. And you can be sure the Giants are looking at that game tape as if they weren't already and say, well, it worked for Cleveland. I thought the Browns did the Panthers a favor every time they threw the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't understand. They just could have gone like old school and just ran the ball for 4 quarters. I think they would have made their life a lot easier.
Jim Szoke, Panthers Radio Network, with us here. The benefit of having Szoke later in the week is we can now talk about the injury up there. This is what we always wanted to talk about with Jim. The injury report has been released. So the Andre Roberts injury, how big of a deal is that?
Well, part of the problem is we never got to see him play, but he's a 3-time Pro Bowl returner, and he was brought in specifically to be make special team special and to make that more of a weapon. So they lose that. So we'll see. I mean, Shi Smith will get that opportunity as a punt returner, Chuba Hubbard as a kick returner, and he's got obviously track speed. So there's not a ton of kick returns in the NFL, of course, with the touchbacks, but he gets the opportunity, could be something big. But I think the key will be how Shi Smith does as a punt returner there. So that'll be it. I mean, we'll see what he can do. It's kind of hard to say you're going to miss something you didn't really have. You didn't really have Andre Roberts, but he's gone for 2 months, is what Coach Matt Rule said. So that's half the season right there.
Still, like you said, the track record is what you were banking on there. Anybody else? I know McCaffrey sat out of the Wednesday practice. There were some others that were limited, but anybody else that a little banged up and that we may or may not see this week in New York?
No, Patrick, we have foiled your plan of Thursday injury information. They're just, fortunately, good news this week. Not much to report. It'll be a long season. I'm sure there'll be bad news down the road that we don't want to have to report. But for this week, the good news is, they're pretty much in good shape heading into this one.
I think Szoke does not like talking about the injury report. And now that we have forced his hand into Thursdays, he is gleeful that he does not have to really elaborate on it that much. All right.
It's like a superstition thing. You don't like talking about injuries.
I understand. I get it. I get it. All right. Now, a tradition unlike any other during our interviews with Jim Szoke, the one and only Ben B. Baby Byron, Panther super fan, will now pepper Jim with some uber geeky fan questions that he will artfully answer, and I'll be amazed. Or dodge, like he did the injury report, and I'll be amazed. Ben, let's satellite in Ben now from whatever planet he is on. Take it away, Ben B. Baby Byron.
So I might potentially keep the injury report going, but Bradley Bozeman, Matt Rule's not starting him. What's the deal with that? Why do you continue forward with Elflein with snap issues when Bozeman is seemingly healthy?
Okay, I've got a question, Patrick. What's up with Ben?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Does the man not own a regular phone? I don't know. What is
every time?
It's like the great Oz. I don't know.
Every time I think about Ben or I talk about Ben, you know what the question that does pop into my head? What's up with Ben? And I have no idea, Szoke. I've been wondering that for 3 years now. What's up with Ben? I haven't figured it out yet.
The great Oz has spoken. I would say what the report was from Coach Matt Rule. I was over there yesterday with all the great press conferences. Is that Bozeman, of course, had the preseason injury that he's still working his way back and getting into. I think the terminology was working into a groove. So I don't know what the NFL analytics to say about getting into a groove are, but they seem to like what Elflein did week 1. The same starting 5 with the offensive line this week. So I think we'll see Bradley Bozeman at some point. He's a road grader, bigger option. So his time will come, but I think maybe he might be a little bit behind, whereas Elflein was here, of course, last year. has a comfort right now with what they're doing. So not for today, but probably down the road, keep an eye on Bradley Bozeman and his opportunities.
I don't know what the problem is right now. I think I sound great, but
You sound great, Ben.
first week,
The best.
first week under Ben McAdoo's offense, if you were to grade it, what would the grade be, and what are your first impressions on this offense? I thought at times it looked really great, especially in the second half, but that first half there was a lot of work that needed to be done, especially with botched snaps. And Christian McCaffrey, I believe, only got two carries in the first half. Ben McAdoo's offense, how do you feel about it?
Well, and see, that's the whole thing. You got to put it all together. Is that there were botched snaps, so those were 4 plays that weren't run. There were 5 batted passes. Now you're up to 9 plays that weren't really run, and you only ran 50 plays. So now you're down to like 41 plays that you had an opportunity to see the outcome of what they were going to happen. So because they weren't picking up first downs, I mean, it wasn't like they were trying to stay away from McCaffrey. They just weren't converting third downs. I mean, they were not having drives, period. You look at time of possession, it was atrocious. It was 39 minutes to 21 minutes. So anytime you're losing time where you only possess the ball 21 minutes in a 60-minute game, I can't say, well, Ben McAdoo's philosophy is off because they didn't get a chance to really execute it. So I think that once we get into it, I think his philosophies are sound. I think what he's calling will work. It's got to be executed. They got to pick up third downs and keep the offense on the field. So I don't have, I guess if you want to grade, it's incomplete because we really haven't had a chance to get a good look at it yet.
Jim Szoke, Panthers Radio Network, with us here on the Patrick Johnson Show. You mentioned Saquon Barkley's really good first week. And lo and behold, Matt Jones kind of looked like a presentable NFL quarterback as a result. Funny how that running game can aid a quarterback. So give us your scouting impressions of the Giants.
Yeah, I think you went Mac Jones there, but Daniel Jones, the Duke, and Charlotte Latin is, he's serviceable. I mean, he's a guy that's got good ability to run. He can run the ball, but he's never been a great passer in this league consistently. He had check down numbers last week, 17 out of 21, but like 180 yards on that. So not much per attempt to going down the field there. So he's just okay. I mean, he's just never really turned into a top 10 pick in this league.
But I mean,
what he was. So he's okay.
He's going to be better as any offense would be if Barkley's healthy, right?
Yeah, just like Christian McCaffrey makes all of our quarterbacks past and present better. And Barkley was huge, obviously, with the 164 yards. And Jones is going to put his rushing yards up with those as well. So I think, they can cobble it together as far as some offense goes. But they're going to be like Cleveland, where they're going to try to possess the ball on the ground and safe passing and things like that. They're same receivers. They got Shepard and Galladay and guys like that once again this year. So nothing too exciting in their pass game for him to work with, I don't think, either.
Defensively, how do the G-men stack up?
I think they're going to get Kayvon Thibodeau back, which is their top pick this year, and he's terrific, obviously, out of Oregon. So they didn't have him last week, but they're better defensively. I think again very much like Cleveland, run the ball on offense, play solid defense, and so they're going to do that to you. Remember last year, I thought that'd be an easy game, and the Panthers really got whooped 25-3 going up there. That defense was a big part of the story on that trip up there, and that hasn't changed. So yeah, I think that's going to be the key. Is this offense in a hurry is going to have to learn to sustain drives and get some points on the board and get some big plays. I mean, you take away that big Robby Anderson pass, which to me was as much obviously a breakdown in the Cleveland secondary as anything else. You're not going to get that gift every week of a 75-yard over the top of a defense. So they're going to earn it this week, I think, from New York.
You brought up Robby Anderson there. Give me just a little bit on kind of where you see his role now. And I mean, because I think I'm not a fan. I'll just say that. But I mean, where is this guy? Will he live up to what maybe management, the coaching staff, and ownership hope he will? Or will he just eventually here have one of his fits that he normally is akin to having?
No, I mean, he had the drops last year. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I don't know where he finished in the league, but I mean, for the number of passes thrown his way, which weren't a lot, he dropped a lot of them. So that's got to happen, first of all. And yeah, he caught that deep ball. That's great. But where he was good 2 years ago in the Joe Brady offense was those crossers across the middle where they could catch him in stride. And he's catching it at full speed at an angle. And I think that they would like to get back to that. You know, Matt Rule referenced that at some point in the preseason about how he was used in that capacity a few years ago. And maybe wide receiver screens, like bubble screens, things like that, where you could see that pop up. But, you know, with McCaffrey's return, I mean, on a typical Sunday, on a good day, you know, that should be 8 to 10 receptions right there of your offense. DJ Moore's got to be the number one guy. He's the number one receiver in this league. I mean, he should be getting 8 passes a week in his hands.
Yeah, at least.
So then, you know, to me, I think Robby just has to be a niche guy. I don't think he's got to be a workhorse. I don't even think he has to be a 1,000-yard guy like he was 2 years ago. I think, you know, a good season for him would be something like, you know, say 60 catches, 850 yards, couple touchdowns, and then you know, really let McCaffrey and DJ Moore be your main guys. I think we'll continue to refuse to use tight ends in our offense. It just seems to be just like we're just not going to do it.
All right.
So I want to say Shi Smith emerge. Honestly, he's got some size, and I think Shi Smith is going to be that guy that also takes away from Robby's production. So he just got to be his niche. I think as the season wears on, we'll see with Terrace Marshall, but I think Shi Smith is going to emerge and be a bigger part.
Will Mayfield bounce back a little more this week? What do you expect out of Baker before he lets you go?
Yeah, I think he bounced back during the game. I think that fourth quarter shows what he's capable of. I mean, that's what you get with him. At least you have, and we didn't even reference the Ian Thomas 50-yard seam route. I mean, at least he's got big play potential that he'll take some shots. I mean, it was driving people nuts with Teddy Bridgewater back in the day. Like everything was a check down. Everything was like just 5 yards out there. At least you can't live on that, but it's like it'd be nice to know you've got that big play ability when you need it because you expect him to make the smaller play. So I like it. I think he'll get more comfortable every week. The things with the batted passes, they've got to work with him as a team. You know, I know I grew up in Cleveland, watching the Browns more than most people do.
Right.
They roll the pocket a lot with him in the past, and he plays better in open space. And also, you've got to create quick passing lanes where he knows he can get the ball out and he can't hang on to it. He's not really, his strong suit is not the 7-step drop in a deep pocket. That's when things can get batted down. So ball's got to come out quick, got to create passing lanes for him, get him into a rhythm. And he actually runs better than you would think. So he can get out there and run a little bit, but he also can just create space in the pocket with his feet. I think that's where he'll get better and more comfortable. But again, you can only make this happen so quickly. And I think over the first month of the season, I think these first 3-4 games, it's just going to have to kind of come together because it is new, and you just can't pretend it's not. It is new, and it's going to take a little bit of time.
Another successful and excellent version of Jim Szoke on the Patrick Johnson Show. Flawless. Jim, thank you.
Great to talk with each of you in your own places that you work.
See you later, Jim.
Yep.